Welcome to The Home and the Maker, sharing advice and encouragement about all topics homemaking and homesteading, and honoring the maker in all of it. Join Megan from Shine.fm for today's conversation.
What we plant won't grow without pollinators. Pollinators, like bees, for example, are vital to the success of a garden. And so how do we bring these pollinators to the garden? Well, joining me today for a conversation about pollinators, but also native wildflowers, is Dr. Parry Kietzman, who is the Associate Professor in the Department of Biological Sciences at Olivet Nazarene University and also the co-chair of the Olivet Biological Sanctuary. So thank you for joining me, Dr. Kietzman.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to be here.
Yes. So tell me about the Olivet Biological Sanctuary. Like, what is your role with it? What is the purpose of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So over in Momence, about 10 miles from campus, we have just a plot of land kind of set aside. It was donated to campus several years ago at this point by some donors. We call it the Swanberg Sanctuary.
Okay.
And it's about 100 acres with different ecosystems in it. So the Kankakee River goes through it. So we have some river, we have some riparian woods, we have some wetland area, and then we have about 50 acres of rehabilitated prairie. So
Okay.
this is area that used to be agricultural fields, but that has been sort of replanted as habitat for, like native grassland,
Yeah.
wildflowers, things like that.
That's awesome. So as you oversee this project, what are you doing? Are you doing research? Are you overseeing the students who are doing the research on this?
Kind of all of the above. So I co-manage the space together with a colleague, Dr. David Hookman, also from Biological Sciences, and the two of us kind of coordinate the space a little bit, keep an eye on it, things like that. But then we do have research projects as well. So I had a student last summer helping to catalog a lot of the native pollinator diversity that was out there.
That's awesome.
She had a Pence Boy scholarship to do the work, which was great. Dr. Hookman has also had students out there conducting research. I believe other faculty have as well. Sometimes we'll bring our classes out there. Yeah. So I teach conservation biology every other spring, and we have worked on, like, for example, collecting a lot of soil samples from out in the prairie and then setting it in the greenhouse to see what plants grow, so as to see what's present in the seed bank.
Yeah.
That type of work. Some of other, like Dr. Hookman takes his ecology class out there a fair amount.
Yeah.
Vertebrate natural history goes out there.
Okay.
So there's a lot of different faculty who will use the space.
Gotcha. I'm already amazed because I didn't realize that Olivet had that much land or fields for research like that. I was just thinking of the little bit of that little plot behind or right by the Parry Farm.
Right.
So what is that plot then?
Yeah, so that's also prairie. So that's like kind of a strip. I think it's a couple acres. And that was put in a few years ago by my predecessor in this position, Dr. Derek Rosenberger, got that set up. And that's a nice space as well.
Yeah.
I've used that in some of my classes as well because it's walking distance.
Yes, for sure. So I read that when the plot was first planted, and I guess I'm not sure entirely which one that was, but the seed mix had 88 different species of native grasses and wildflowers. Is that still true, or is there more than that, do you think?
So usually you start with a seed mix with a lot of seeds like that. They don't all necessarily germinate in the first year.
Yeah.
So sometimes when people are trying to put in like a prairie area, which is getting more and more popular, which is great to see.
Yeah.
A lot of the seeds, they need a couple seasons in the soil and freeze-thaw cycles to kind of get going. So you might go out there and not necessarily see 88 species. But we put out a lot to see what is gonna, which species are gonna like that area, which ones are gonna sort of work well together.
Yeah.
We try to do a little bit of grass control because the grass grows very quickly and it gets super tall and it can shade out some of those other plants. So we do what we can to kind of knock at least some of, you need to have some grass in a prairie, but we try to knock some of it back to give the flowering plants a chance.
For sure.
Yep.
So I'm glad you've done a lot of research on pollinators for the subject of this podcast for sure. But when I think of the word pollinators, what first comes to mind is bees. There are other creatures that are pollinators.
Yes.
So birds, butterflies, anything else?
Absolutely, yes. So there are flies which pollinate. A lot of them kind of look like a bee if you see it. It'll be yellow. It'll have stripes. It'll have a very kind of a round shape to it like a bee. But those are actually flies in the family Syrphidae. Those are the hover flies, and they can't sting you or do any. And those will actually pollinate as well.
Yep.
We have different kinds of beetle.
Okay.
Will pollinate. Some of them damage the plant. So you have to kind of know, like, this beetle is a pollinator, this is beneficial to the plant, and this one is a problem.
Yeah.
But there are pollinating beetles as well. Wasps will pollinate. Of course, butterflies and moths, I think you mentioned. So there are a lot. Like, bees, I think, get all the press. They have the best PR campaign. But,
yes, that's true.
But there's definitely a lot of other insect life and other animals as well.
Do you think that just because we have hummingbirds that will come by for the flowers that we plant, do you think that they remember year to year where the pollen sources are so that they come back every year?
I think they could.
Okay.
Yeah, I think especially, a vertebrate that lives from year to year, I think would have some memory. They're also very visual creatures, and usually like a plant that a hummingbird is going to pollinate tends to be kind of red, very showy.
Very bright,
And that's, of course, a billboard to a bird flying by.
Yeah. So we know that pollinators are super important, but just dive in, like why? Why are they so important? Why would we want to attract them to a garden?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, our planet is covered in flowering plants, and some of them have economic significance to us. Fruit trees, vegetables, a lot of our crops will flower. But then also just natural ecosystems as well. Their sort of productive base is plants that the other organisms, animals, for example, need to thrive. And plants reproduce themselves through the act of pollination much of the time. So pollination is just a way of sperm meeting the egg in the plant, and then seeds are able to form.
Yep.
So without pollen traveling from one plant to another, you're not going to get sort of the mixing up of the DNA that happens. You're not going to maintain that genetic diversity within a population. Some plants will not reproduce unless they get cross-pollinated with pollen from another individual of their species. Other ones, they might be able to self-pollinate, but they don't do as well. Like maybe they don't produce as many seeds, or their fruit isn't as big. So pollination really drives a lot of ecosystem function at sort of like that base level that lets the rest of the ecosystem thrive.
So what are some things that you would suggest for like the average home gardener to do to increase the amount of pollinators that are coming to the garden?
So adding diversity is a big one. Like when I drive around in neighborhoods, I see a whole lot of grass.
Yes.
And that might be a pretty picture, but it's kind of a food desert because grass does not flower.
Yeah.
And it doesn't offer anything that a pollinator would need. It doesn't really provide habitat for them. So all of those bees and beetles and everything, aside from needing a food source, they also need places to lay their eggs and to raise their young and so on. Most bees are actually solitary. I think usually when people think of bees, they picture like a honeybee or something, which isn't even native to North America. But like most of our bees are, fun fact, most of our bees are solitary. So all those individual mother bees are raising their young, and they need habitat for that. And grass doesn't provide it.
Right.
And then, of course, nectar and pollen are their food sources. So if homeowners could just add more take away as much grass as they can from their yards and add flowering plant diversity. But aside from that, there's kind of a right and a wrong way to do that. So if you go to like a big box store and you buy, just like flowers that look nice to you.
Yeah.
A lot of times those have been so bred to be like showy and have like a long bloom period and perfect that they actually are not productive to pollinators. So they're not producing, like a pollinator won't visit it. It's not producing anything that an insect would want. So seeking out sources of native seeds, like prairie seeds, things like that, and putting in native plants is going to be a lot more beneficial.
So let's dive into that a little bit. Like why native plants? Because I know like you can go to the store, they have like, the native seeds packets or whatever. You can just sprinkle out in the yard, but and even just like watching some home ownership shows, they like to highlight the native plants to an area. So why are those more beneficial to, say, a particular area?
Well, a bunch of reasons. One is if you're buying a plant that's not native, there's always the risk that, it's going to be not suited to where you're planting it. So it might not thrive, but then also it might, in the absence of like its natural competitors, it might thrive too much.
Okay.
And then you're going to end up with something called an invasive species, which starts taking over the landscape. So a project that we have ongoing at the Swanberg Sanctuary is removing invasive plant species.
Okay.
We have a lot of this sort of shrubby species called Amur honeysuckle, which is not native. It was brought in as an ornamental because people like honeysuckle, and it will just spread. It doesn't really have any good competitors. It grows rapidly. It makes a huge number of berries that the birds will collect and like spread those seeds all over the place.
Of course.
So every time we have like a work day out there, we're like knocking back that honeysuckle because it just takes over. And when I drive around Bourbonnais, I see honeysuckle so much in people's yards, and I'm like, what are you guys doing? But so you always have the risk of that non-native species kind of taking over because it's away from whatever its natural competitors or its natural herbivores would be to kind of keep it under control. So that's an issue. But then like back to the pollinators, the native pollinators that we have here have existed for a really, really long time together with particular species of plant that would also be native to whatever that local area is. So those pollinators and those plants are like uniquely suited to be kind of in relationship with each other.
Yeah.
Where the pollinator maybe has adaptations to extract nectar and pollen from a particular type of plant really well. And that plant has adaptations to interact really well with whatever its particular specialist pollinator happened to be. So if you take away those native plants and you put in something else from, the garden center or whatever that's not native, then your local pollinators aren't going to have that plant that they have a relationship with and that they're sort of uniquely suited to visit and to get benefits from and to pollinate and all those good things.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. So if someone is wanting to bring them specifically to the garden, is it good to plant some of the native wildflowers, say, around the garden, or just have a very diverse yard and they'll come to the garden anyway, or like spot planting these things? Like how do you bring them specifically to the garden?
That's a really great question, and it's actually an area of research right now, which is that because it's getting more and more popular to have, like on farms, for example, to add like a prairie strip to boost local insect diversity. Because a lot of those insects will then be beneficial to the crop plants and so on. And or places, a park wants to add some native plant diversity or whatever, or homeowners. It's like, this is a hot topic right now. And what people like me are trying to figure out is like if you're going to go to the effort of tilling up your land, pulling out the grass, putting in these native plants, how do I get kind of the most bang for my buck, basically? And like, should it be a strip? Should it be like more of like a patch? Should it just be like interspersed? And we're still kind of figuring that out, actually. I would love to be able to say, like, these are the criteria. But I think, in general, I don't know if you've seen the movie Field of Dreams, but, like, they keep saying, like, if you build it, they will come. So I think adding, even if you're not, like, optimizing, even adding any kind of native plant diversity, taking away some of that lawn space, any amount of that is going to be better than not at all. So what I did at my house, so I'm relatively new here at Olivet. This is my second year. When we moved here in 2024, it was like sort of late spring, early summer, and the house that we moved into, the yard was just like a rectangle of grass. And then the front yard was not too much better. So it really doesn't look like a conservation biologist was there at all. And I didn't do anything my first summer because I was, gearing up to teach my classes here and everything. So I was focusing on that. But then last spring, I started diversifying a little bit. And what we did is my husband and I tilled up a whole strip along the back fence. It's about 1 meter wide. And I just blasted it with native plant seeds to see what would come up, basically. So we've got a little strip there. And we've added some like vegetables, which wouldn't necessarily be native, but we're working on adding to the diversity. We've done some stuff in the front yard now at this point as well. So I'm kind of chipping. I'm not the best gardener in the world, but I'm trying to kind of chip away at it. And what I noticed from summer 2024 to last summer, So many more insects in the, like so many butterflies
Yeah.
and so many like different kinds of bees, not just
Okay.
honeybees, but
Yeah.
like bumblebees, a lot of native solitary bees. So they're showing up.
That's awesome.
And I don't know that I was necessarily optimizing things. That was just like
Yeah.
the convenient part of the yard to put
Yeah.
in
Sure.
some prairie plants. And I would say my diversity has been increasing from
That's
that. So,
awesome. I love that. Is there ever such a thing as too many pollinators?
no.
Okay.
I mean, maybe you could have a situation where they're like out competing each other, but I think the system would sort of self-regulate
Okay.
in that case.
Cool. So, back to specifically the bees. I remember when I was younger, it was like, oh, the bees are dying. Like, is that still the case? Or like, are bees in a better place where they are thriving?
So I would say bees are in general as a group, and there's like 20,000 species of bee in the world, are still need some help. So we talk about the 4 Ps affecting the bees, and those are parasites, pathogens, pesticides, and poor nutrition.
Okay.
So there are bees that get ectoparasites. Honeybees are one of those. And again, honeybees come from Europe, actually.
Okay.
So they were brought over by European settlers hundreds of years ago.
Yeah, they
so
made it across the ocean.
They did in ships, which is crazy to think
yeah.
about. But European settlers, they couldn't live without their bees. I totally
Okay.
relate. Brought those, but there were plenty of native bees already here. But they do, like, there are species of bee that get parasites, and the parasites transmit diseases.
Okay.
So that's a problem. And then pathogens, that's the next P. So pathogens or diseases. That's another issue.
Yeah.
Bees are getting sick. Problematic. But the other 2 Ps are ones that we can do a little bit more about. So pesticide exposure is a problem. So people who are, I think agricultural pesticides are probably the biggest issue because they're used in the highest volume, but homeowners use them as well.
Yes.
On their lawns and on other things, weed killers and so on. And even ones like we have herbicides and so on that say that they're safe for pollinators. Increasingly, we're getting more and more experimental evidence that shows that even if they don't kill an insect outright, that colony of bees or whatever you're looking at, like the individuals will have shorter lifespans. They tend to get more disoriented, so they can't find their way back home. So they have sort of what we call sublethal effects.
Okay.
That even if it's not just like totally killing your beehive, it's still problematic. So those are your pesticides. And then the last one is poor nutrition. And that comes from habitat loss because nutrition for a pollinator, like bees, bees consume pollen as their protein food.
Okay.
And they feed it to their young so that they can develop into adults. And then nectar would be their carbohydrate food. So nectar is high in sugar.
Yeah.
And honeybees make it into honey, but all bees collect nectar in some capacity.
Okay.
So when you don't have enough flowering plants out there, you're creating a poor nutrition issue because they don't have access to food sources.
Yeah.
And we're finding that diverse food sources is better. Like, we talk about monoculture farming where you have all of one, acres and acres and acres of all just one species of plant.
Yeah.
So that plant might be a flowering plant like almond trees or something. So that could be something that bees would get nutrition from, but it's all one kind of thing. So that would be like just eating fries for every single meal.
Yeah.
You're gonna live probably, but you're not gonna be thriving. So different species of plant will put different vitamins and minerals and amino acids and everything into their nectar and pollen. So when a bee has access to many different species of plant, they're getting a more complete nutrition.
Cool.
So.
Okay. So then I guess that would kind of relate to the question, one of the questions I've already asked. Like the best thing then to help, say, the bees is just to plant a diversity
give them
of
some
things.
food. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So habitat loss is a huge issue for bees. We're paving things over. We are creating big monoculture farms.
Yeah.
We are having big lawns. And all of those are taking away from areas that previously would have had a lot of different food sources.
Yeah. Gotcha. So when it comes to the garden or like lawn management, what are some of those, like, are there better ways to manage unwanted pests, also unwanted things in the yard that would not hurt pollinators?
Yeah, I'm probably not the best person to ask because I have a very like live and let live attitude to my yard, and I'm definitely not winning any like Better Homes and Gardens, awards for that. But I got a lot of insects.
There you go.
So priorities. I would say. There are things that you can do. So, if you feel that you really need to spray an herbicide or something, there are times of year that it's safer.
Okay.
So, you want to choose times of year when the pollinators aren't going to be so active. So, if nothing is flowering in your yard, you're not going to have pollinators because there's not going to be anything for them to visit.
Right.
So, that would be a good time.
Okay.
Whereas if your apple tree is in bloom, terrible time to spray because all those bees are going to be visiting your apple blossoms or whatever else you happen to be growing. So, choose a strategic time. Would be helpful. And then another one is in the fall, if you could minimize raking up leaves. A lot of our beneficial insects, particularly a lot of our really beautiful moths and lightning beetles and things like that, will spend the winter as juvenile stages in leaf litter. Okay. So if you rake up all your leaves and bag them and send them to the landfill or burn them or whatever, you're taking away all of that overwintering. Bumblebees will overwinter in that kind of place. So you're taking away a lot of that overwintering. Sure. And then also if you have rose bushes or things that leave stems behind in the fall. A lot of people want to tidy up their garden in the fall and get rid of all that.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
A lot of our solitary bees will overwinter as pupae in the stems of those dry stems.
Yeah.
So you just took away all your bees when you cut down, your rose stems, things like that.
So in that case, then, at what point would you cut those down? So when do they wake up? Or
I would wait when things start to kind of wake up again for the spring.
Okay.
That would be, and things start to be in bloom, you can expect that there's going to be more insect activity.
Okay.
And then you could start thinking about tidying up.
Okay.
I think would be a little safer.
Yeah, that's so interesting because I feel like growing up it was always okay, it's getting cold, cleaning up the garden.
And nobody wants a messy garden over the winter, but the pollinators thrive in that messy garden. So
okay, good to know. Let's see, what else do I have? I think we're down to the last question. So it's an amazing, complex, incredible design. The whole pollination system and the interrelationship between bees and the plants need the bees, or all the pollinators in general, actually. But what has God shown you of his creation as you study these things? What's he showing you, and how have you marveled at just this system that God has created? Yeah,
I think for me, it's just the incredible diversity and the way that these different species will be so interconnected shows, to me it shows the hand of the creator, but it also shows that the creator has put this incredible mechanism in place where the world and animal life and plant life and everything sort of grow and they change over time, which is exciting to watch and to see evidence of, and that it just keeps as the environment changes, those species kind of change along with it. And it's cool to think, that we serve a God that was able to put that into place and to come up with it in the first place. It's such a huge concept, I feel like. And the more, the deeper I get into my discipline and the more I learn about these specialized relationships and these unique species and everything, it shows the hand of that creator. Sort of overseeing it all, and it's amazing to be able to see understand that level of detail. And I know that I definitely don't fully understand it myself, but every time I learn a little bit more about it, it's I get that spark of excitement again.
That's so cool. It's so intricate and amazing. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and advice and just the research that's been going on. It's awesome to get to learn about that and to think what we can do for our gardens to help the pollinators.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
Yes. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for watching, for listening online as well. Thank you so much for watching this episode of The Home and the Maker.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Home and the Maker podcast. And for other podcasts from Shine.fm, visit the Shine.fm podcast channel.